Star Trucker is a truck simulator with the tantalizing allure of a zero-G environment and a $0 bank account. I'm basically broke all the time. There's lots of trailers, food, and clothes to be delivered across multiple systems, and they won't wait if your truck's hull is leaking or your oxygen is running out. So patch it up, or hold your breath and make that deadline, or you'll be out of a job or in debt so deep you'll make Greece look like financial stallions. Not having much experience with truck sim games, I was enticed by the idea of fixing up the truck in the vastness of space, while taking on jobs to keep the wolves from the door. On game startup, you'll be given a choice of difficulty. Do you want to focus on driving, or do you want to deal with the mechanical gubbins as well? I went with the recommended setting, which apparently is a bit of a balance of both. The game's intro has you arriving to a new system in your beat-ass truck that breaks down immediately, which is not a great start. A friendly trucker called Dusty Bear will radio and prompt you to exit the cab and patch up your hull damage if you intend to continue living.
Looks like you're leaking a whole lot of lung juice there, buddy.
Dumpy Beaver will also help you check your CB is capable of transmitting, and then you head on to your next system to deliver the trailer that's attached. You get some money deposited, and then you head off to collect a new job. And for the most part, that's pretty much the game loop. There's a leveling system that allows unlocking different delivery jobs that offer higher rewards, things like perishable foodstuffs or toxic loads. There's also a story pathway that progresses your relationships with some of the NPC characters you hear on the radio. For the most part though, you'll be going from job to job. The main friction of the game, and part of its charm, is the lovable scamp of a truck that jets you from delivery to delivery. It's a pretty bare bones rig you start with, and you'll find it's fairly sparsely fitted. There's critical ship systems like oxygen generators, air filtration, climate regulators, and hull integrity. And if any of this fails, or you can't fix it, or you lack the spare parts, you'll lose consciousness and be charged a massive rescue and repair bill reminiscent of America's healthcare system. Other systems will require attention as well and include the artificial gravity, the EVA suit, magnetic locking systems that help you attach to trailers and to dock at stations, and finally the console and the engine systems that can fail and leave you hurtling uncontrollably towards a chunk of rock the size of Poland and re-evaluating your life choices. Also, don't forget to refuel. Even in space, the oil companies have you by the balls. All of these varying systems' constant need for attention can be a handful, and I'm not sure there's enough of a tutorial to help guide you through the process of prioritizing what needs the most critical attention. Some of the things I had to find out for myself, like some systems will blow a fuse if you change their internal battery without flipping the safety switch off at the panel. This means you've now got a battery problem and a fuse problem to replace. When the oxygen system alarm goes off, this could mean one of many problems. Either the hull is breached, the oxygen generator fuse or battery has failed, or the air filtration is balked. So it's important to check all of them, or you can lose consciousness and suddenly owe
$1 million.
I went and bought too many of these fuse things to stock up and just put them on a shelf. Apparently they break if they come into contact with any other thing that has any kind of intrinsic mass. So inevitably when my gravity system failed and they began floating around the cab, I no longer had 3 working fuses, I had 3 busted metal pieces of crap that had to be junked. These black boxes were just sitting there and I had no idea why until I discovered I could use them to carefully insulate those aforementioned fuses and batteries. Why did nobody tell me this? What the hell is this cleaning box for? I still don't know. Maybe I'm meant to clean my truck between deliveries? Yeah, nuts to that. I didn't realize you can scroll into the map to determine what services are available in the different systems. There's repair shops and even upgrade shops to allow for much easier ship speeds, ship controls, hull integrity, as well as overall delivery ease. Other space truckers are jerks. I was pulled over by the cops to search for illegal goods after jumping through a gate to a new system. I lowered my speed like a good space citizen, and this feckless numpty just barreled into the back of me at Mach 10, thoroughly trashing my goods and causing me to cop a fine for reckless driving. And I got penalised for the damaged goods delivered. What a joke. Speaking of fines, I learned to be very careful to check for delivery times and expected duration of travel, because as you jump through the system gates, there's a kind of time anomaly that occurs, and you can lose around 30 minutes, suddenly meaning your delivery is late, and it can cost you thousands of dollars. So yeah, gate travel is not instantaneous. I learnt to beware of floating space junk. Even the tiniest piece of trash will cause your unupgraded cab to spring a leak. If you run into an Ewok out there, you'll be leaking juice into the void like an incontinent chihuahua. Now, after bitching about all the tendencies for the systems to break, I'm going to recommend that when you start a game, go for the custom game option to the far left and toggle things like collision damage and energy system usage to low if all of that constant maintenance is going to annoy you like it did me. This is a really welcome option that allows you to tweak the experience to your liking, and I can attest to enjoying it far more when I changed all of this up. The game loop of delivery is still the same, and whether you get bored by that repetition is something you'll just have to think about for yourself. Let's talk about graphics. It's quite a pretty game, and certainly in some system there's a lot of assets on screen to potentially slow things down. I did get the occasional graphical stutter, but it didn't overly hamper my travels. There's enough graphical systems that you can tweak to make your rig run a little bit better. And incidentally, there's a nice touch where you can set all of the measurements to imperial or metric depending upon your preference, which I really liked. When trying to avoid a lot of the floating debris, I found it difficult to orientate the camera in third person to see far enough in front of me to anticipate objects I needed to avoid. In some of the debris fields, this became a real issue as any contact resulted in lost hull integrity, lost time, or even lost cargo. I liked the semi-cartoon aesthetics of the inside of the truck, and I think it makes it easier to navigate some of the controls and systems as well. Although, as mentioned, I think a longer tutorial in that space would have been welcome. There's a variety of planetary systems, which is quite nice as well. Atlas Prime has a huge planet beneath you, giving that feeling of insignificance, and Edgeburg's industrial feel was giving me Detroit vibes and feeling like a trucker's frequent flyby point. Onto sound, the truck's engines sound pretty meaty, and the magnetic locking has a nice satisfying clunk to it. I found some of the alarms fading into the background a little bit, and by the time I noticed it, it was just too late to avoid unconsciousness. The voice work of the NPCs is fine, and thankfully I found none of the characters particularly grating. When passing by gates that I hadn't unlocked yet, some helpful truckers give you reminders that you're not certified for using that particular gate yet, and this got tiresome when the pickups I needed to collect were placed right adjacent to these locked gates, so while I'm reversing trying to maglock the trailer, I'd be frequently interrupted with reminders I wasn't good enough to be near that gate.
Break for Lucky J? Sorry, but rules are rules. Gates to the mineral colonies are off limits until you have the correct clearance.
Music that you can play from the radio is a relaxing mix of space country, if that's a thing. And I see that someone's already launched a mod to add your own music to the radio station, which is pretty cool. One last note before I sum up, I wanted to talk about the delivery times and how if you play quite efficiently and you get to a system really early, you can sometimes be penalized by having to wait long times. This one instance, I delivered a crate well before the time it was required, and I had to wait for the delivery dock to open up. I kid you not, I was waiting about 25 to 30 real-time minutes for this dock to unlock. I ended up stepping away from the keyboard and changing my screen protector on my smartphone and doing some other chores around the house. But if a game rewards you for being efficient by pushing you away back into your real life to do chores, I'm not sure I can really get in its corner. What do I look like, some sort of functional human being? Overall, I found Star Trucker more approachable than something like Euro Truck Simulator, and more interesting for the fact that it's in space. But as a general title on that middle difficulty, I found some of the systems a little too punishing for me to enjoy the experience. On custom mode, the mechanical grievances were much more to my liking, but I personally found the repetition of the actual delivery bits a bit repetitive. For anyone who enjoys truck simulator games, this might well be a breath of fresh air as something unique and different to the more realistic alternate titles. Otherwise, if you're thinking of picking it up, I'd wait for a sale.